You've got to build a relationship first. People buy from who they know or who they think they know anyway. And so being that person that's listening and understanding who they are and what their business is really about, not just the technical aspects of what they do, but what's their drive, what's their why, as Simon said.
What is the difference, do you feel, between networking and sales?
I think it's important to take your time. Nothing happens overnight. As good as you think you're gonna do, there's drawbacks. There's time that it takes to build everything. And at times when you're on your own, it seems scary because you're taking a huge risk. But it's going to be worth it at the end. So that's kind of how I look at it and how I started. Even though it's recently, it takes time to build anything.
Right.
But you do get to meet awesome people, and there's different places you get to meet them, including this, that are willing to help, that are willing to give you good advice. So go for it. There's really nothing stopping you besides you. So
Great. So Charlie, you had something you'd like to share? I think you're on mute.
You got to be smarter than the equipment, right? Yes, absolutely. And you're spot on there in that you've got to build a relationship first. People buy from who they know or who they think they know anyway. And so being that person that's listening and understanding who they are and what their business is really about, not just the technical aspects of what they do, but what's their drive, what's their why, as Simon Sinek might say. And once you understand that, then you're in a much better position to help them either through direct services or, better yet, referrals with professionals that you've worked with that that will do a great job for them as well. So you become the resource person that people go to for information and technology, technique, whatever they need to have done.
Yeah, that's a really good point. For me, when I started, really, I had expertise in the corporate world. I'm also a fractional CFO, but I didn't really have any connections with people with small businesses. And so, I did join a couple of groups like BNI, but I found Alignable here to be the most effective for me in the people that I meet. And by that, I mean, I met the person that does bookkeeping, and she introduced me to one of her clients who is now one of my clients. And then just the other day, she introduced me to another client who I met with prior to this meeting, and it looks like we're going to do business too. So I really networked with her in Alignable just to learn about, what she's doing, what kind of clients she deals with, in small to medium-sized businesses, what's the real need for a fractional CFO. I decided that I would sort of change my name to Trusted Accounting Advisor because there's a little better context for what I do. And by product of that networking, I got 2 sales. So I think the power of networking can lead to a sale, but I think the point is well taken that it can take time. Anybody else have any thoughts about when you started your business, how you kind of got going, and how people found out about you?
Well, I'm going to add that in San Diego, and do you pronounce your first name Ina?
That's correct.
Yeah, San Diego is a very networked town.
We are.
We don't mind. We're kind of a backwater LA.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But
we're a big city that operates like a small town.
Yeah. Subject to the pandemic, which kind of messed a lot of things up, San Diego, in my opinion, is the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true.
And I learned to do networking years ago and became good at it. But I'm always about who do you know, who do you know, who do you know? But when I network, I'm always looking to possibly, and it's usually high level service providers that deal with an owner of a business. I I always do my best to try to refer them, if nothing else, to other service providers that can get them to where they want. And if nothing else, to provide goodwill, and it's worked out. Because my business, what I really do, is all about referrals to me. And Heather, when I heard you speak, the things that I do, especially as an M&A intermediary and for the smaller deals, a business broker, the CPAs don't do, and I get it. They don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But they also don't do, which I think the fractionals do a lot of, which I do that work when I'm ever engaged to, is forecasting.
Mm-hmm. And
most CPA firms, from my experience, don't like to get into that so much. And so I feel akin to you, what you're talking about. And Darius, if more businesses that I get led to have you in front of them before they get to me as an M&A intermediary business broker, I'm a happy man. Because if they're getting ready for an exit, what you described is you're the pre-prep. How about just run your business right? But if you ever want to exit your business, you run it right, you're ready. I like to run into people like you. If I have to do it, I will, but I'd rather just have them ready.
Yes.
You know what I mean, Doris?
Well, I like that, we can meet in groups like this and develop our own SMEs, subject matter experts, because we all know our lane and what we're good at, and we may know a little bit about everything, but we know what we know and we know what we don't know. And so it's great to have people like yourselves that I can refer out to people and say, hey, like one of the key questions I always ask a client that's going to start working with me, what is your exit strategy? Because that actually really drives their strategy. But it leads me to talk to people like Jim, to people like Charlie. It really lets me go, okay, then I know somebody that can help you perhaps get in that direction. And so sometimes, being set up properly to actually sell your business can take years. As long, you want to make yourself as attractive as possible. You want to work with somebody that really knows, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, that kind of stuff. And so that's why I think it's great to know all these different people. Heather, to know how to maximize, the tax credits that are out there. I mean, so many people know so little about them. I mean, we hear about solar, but we don't hear about everything else. There's so much else. And I had shared when Heather was on the call at another time that my church is doing, extensive renovations in the millions of dollars. And I found out that through, one of the tax credits, they can actually pass that tax credit on to the contractor, for certain areas, and they can discount their prices, which then lowers the price to my church. So, where they wouldn't qualify for the 179, I think it's H, I forget.
D.
Then D, thank you.
Yeah.
D, then, but the contractor they're doing business with would, and that contractor didn't know that existed. So it added to their tool of marketing. They could market to nonprofits and say, hey, guess what? We can give you a discount because of this credit. So, but I would have known that if I hadn't, joined this group or Alignable itself as a whole. There's just such a wealth of information here.
Ina, what you said about when you engage clients to what's your exit strategy, of course, I'm like the fox in the hen house because I'm waiting there when and if they want to exit. But my line, which isn't my original line, is prepare for an exit the moment you start your business. But what it does is the best practices for a small business can almost kill them if they do all that McKinsey type of stuff. But good practices gives them ready for an exit if they ever do. But in the meantime, where they can enjoy the best that they can out of their business. And it's almost like I use the term the sleep at nights. If you get your internal controls together, you sleep at night. But if you have good practices, you can actually get the best margins that you're capable of and enjoy your business without worrying about other things. So I like what you said, Anna.
So Darius, share with us some of the experiences you've had with some of your clients and like their challenges that you've specifically been able to help with. And do you use like subject matter experts, referral people?
Yeah, so a lot of what I've been doing in the last 30 to 45 days, excuse my little one in the background. If you
It's
hear
okay.
a lot of what I've been doing is really being intentional about building my network on Alignable. And I've been able to do that pretty rapidly. So I have a bunch of contacts in different areas and different sectors. So that's one thing. But how I help my clients is essentially I become another perspective. I become another brain to add to the system, and I offer another perspective. And I'm the bad guy, right? But I'm just not the face of the business. So I'm the guy that pokes the holes in the boat. I'm the one that says, "Hey, that's great, but it's not so great. But this is how we could do it better." Right. So essentially that's what I do for my clients. A lot of them I've done websites for. So it looks like on a monthly basis, I'm going in and tweaking these things, updating them, adding new pictures, adding events that they're doing. So it's a lot of in your face, like making sure, a lot of relationships that are constantly being built, because we're always in contact. We're always changing things. We're always updating things just to continue to help build their business.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. I think all of us that are in the accounting and finance field experience the shoot the messenger syndrome.
Yeah.
Like when I was in the corporate world, if the financials are really good, everybody's like pat themselves on the back. Oh, this is great. When they're bad, it's like, well, what went wrong? And they look at me, and in my head, I'm saying, well, I don't know. You're running the business, not me. I'm just giving you the numbers. But I got used to that. So got to blame somebody. So Sandy, what's been your experience with your clients? And how do you actually, get new clients, or when you started, how did that work for you?
Well, when I started, they didn't have networking back then. Basically, it's kind of funny. I sent out a letter to every CPA in Kansas because at that point I wasn't on QuickBooks Online. It wasn't virtual. So I sent out a letter, and I had some of them that saved them, and they've been very good referrals, and they still are good referrals. But I do love networking just for building relationships. Sure. I need the vendors in my pocket because my clients trust me because they have to, really, because I have the access to everything. Right. But they tend to ask me for every vendor that they can think of. Who do I go to for IT? Thinking I have all this knowledge, so I need to have the knowledge so I can share it with them. Right. So a lot of times I'll network just to get the vendors. So
that's great. Yeah, that's really good advice, because you just don't know. Like I have one guy that I refer to, and he actually cleans like floors and upholstery, but he's really, really personable, and he does a great job, and he services a lot of people. And so when he goes and does their house, they get talking to him because they really like talking to Jake, and he's a great guy and all this. And so, they may share a little bit about their business. So I've actually gotten referrals from him, which is not somebody I ever thought I'd get a referral from, but it's been great. I'm like, well, thank you. That's nice, So you never know. So you're right, Sandy, just keeping those relationships going, I think that's important. And there's some people that, I talk to on a regular basis, but then there's some people I only talk to a couple times a year, but, it's worth, reaching out. And certainly still the snail mail is still a good way to reach out to people too. Because that does set you apart from everybody else. Because who's doing that these days besides leaving a flyer on your door? Who's actually mailing you something? It's mostly realtors. That's about it. So.